To the way first.
I'll be happy to. For those who are here listening, my name is Steve Waterman, K4CJX, and I'm the Winlink administrator for the Winlink development team. And I have known some of these people for quite so many years, and others I don't know at all, but I have a great respect for and have seen great work that's been done. First, I'd like to introduce the newest, I think, member of this team is Gretchen Britt, who replaced a real champion, in my opinion, as the statewide interoperability coordinator, perhaps what, a year ago, Gretchen?
It's only been 3 months.
3 months? Time, well,
I started in February.
When you're my age, time gets distorted. But at any rate, she's the statewide interoperability coordinator for the state of South Carolina. And I would assume it's the South Carolina Emergency Management Division, that she has a tremendous relationship with, who consists of Gabe Turner, who I believe is the ESF2 or the communication manager for the state, and Roger Mull, who is the volunteer liaison that really is the backbone of the Oxcom, or all volunteer resources in the state of North Carolina. And he's got quite a cadre of competent people in that state. In my personal opinion, not if anybody cares, I think the two Carolinas are top billing when it comes to their use and care of auxiliary communications personnel, and they get paid back in spades by very competent workmanship that I think we'll probably hear a little bit about tonight. A new individual that I just met, Dennison Comer, is I believe, connected with IT in the GIS department. I could be wrong, but that's how I identify with him. He, in this recent exercise with FEMA Region 4 and Region 6, grabbed the data that we provide in Winlink Express and had put together a very useful and complicated looking, but very effective and educational view of the exercise from beginning to end. And I don't want to take anything away from that, so I'll stop there. I don't know who's going to take this over, but I'm going to turn it over to Roger Mull, if I may. And if he's not the person that's going to be doing the initial presentation, he can move the ball from there. Really grateful for the state of North Carolina being here. You got some stiff competition on TV tonight, but you will be on YouTube and you will be on other media. And that is one of the lessons that some of the people in the East Coast have learned, and that is, don't stay up late. Watch it at your own convenience. And so I think that's happening here tonight. And we're grateful for what we can learn from the state of South Carolina emergency management. Go ahead, Roger.
Thank you, Steve. A couple minor corrections. Gretchen is our SWIC, but she actually is a part of the SLED, our state law enforcement division. And then Gabe Turner is the manager of communications for the South Carolina Emergency Management. And Dennison is the ESF2 lead for the state, and he works at the Department of Administration. So it's really a multi-jurisdictional event tonight. We're glad to be here and talk about the program. We were asked to talk about our exercise and how we're integrating communications volunteers in, and we'll get a little bit into what Steve was talking about. And with that, Gretchen, I guess I'll let you take it away.
One moment, please, if I could. Those speaking, Gretchen, would you turn your video on to speak? Otherwise, I can't get you in here.
Okay, I have the video enabled. There you go.
Okay, you got it. Now I'm going to mute everybody, and then those who are speaking are going to have to unmute themselves. Okay, Gretchen,
Dan,
unmute
you're
yourself.
sort of muffled. Dan, you're sort of muffled. I don't know why.
Me neither. Go ahead, Gretchen. Everybody, those who are speaking, unmute yourselves, and you're ready to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Gretchen.
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I am Gretchen Burt. I'm the SWIC. I started in February. I replaced Bob Stedman, who is irreplaceable, but I'm doing my best to fill his shoes. I work very closely with Dennison and Gabe and Roger, and they are awesome. I wouldn't even know anything about what I'm doing at the moment if it weren't for all of those guys and Bob as well. So start off our presentation, one of the things that I wanted to talk about before we get into the exercise details is one of the things that the SWIC has started doing with the Statewide Interoperability Executive Committee is an all-hazard communications unit. So North Carolina has a similar program as well, and we use some of their program to model ours. And we some of the positions that are in the communications unit are the communications unit leader, which is a critical position, the communications technician, incident communications center manager, incident tactical dispatcher, radio operator, and then the auxiliary emergency communications. So our program right now, we are qualifying 4 of those positions. We are qualifying the communications unit leader, the communications technician, the incident tactical dispatcher, and the auxiliary emergency communications. So we just approved in March the program and the guide, the qualifications, and the process for credentialing a communications unit personnel so that we can have a structured communications unit in South Carolina, and we'll all be able to work together. Everyone will have the same qualifications. We are using position task books that are customized for South Carolina. They are initiated through the SWIC's office, and we've already had a communications unit leader course and issued position task books for that class. And we just completed an incident tactical dispatcher class in May and issued 13 position task books for that class. So we are up and running and going full speed and trying to get people in South Carolina qualified and credentialed in order to continue to build our communications unit. And it's the communications unit that will be those that will be responding to disasters and exercises. And the exercises help us continue to get the position task books completed and qualified so that we can build that group of personnel. The slides aren't changing on my screen. So I think I've covered the portion that I was supposed to cover. And I think I'm turning it over to Dennison now.
Awesome. Thanks, Gretchen.
Okay, and we'll do questions and answers at the end. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer those.
Awesome. Thanks again, Gretchen. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dennison Coomer. A few familiar faces, lots of new faces. So it's a pleasure to meet all of you. As Roger said, my name is Dennison, and I work for the Department of Administration. And in South Carolina, it's our agency that's designated as the lead coordinating agency for ESF2 during emergencies. We also handle public safety and emergency communications on a day-to-day, but in part of our ESFT responsibilities is to make sure that, you know, we participate in the state full scope exercises and put on additional training, like Gretchen said, to give folks that are working through their position task books an opportunity to complete those objectives in an exercise format so that they can get evaluated and work towards getting everything credentialed and signed off and becoming fully accredited commune members. So this year we participated in the South Carolina Emergency Management state full scale exercise. It was a dual threat scenario. There was a winter weather kind of system that moved through that caused some fuel disruptions. The primary focus, I believe, was to give EMD and other ESFs the ability to work on testing out the new emergency refueling plan. And then we also, just to make things fun, threw in a flooding event similar to what South Carolina experienced back in 2015. So once we got the information about what the scenario was going to look like, I started planning an exercise based off of the success that we had from last year's full-scale exercise, which was kind of the first time where we moved everything into a focus of deploying communications unit teams made up of the different communications unit positions and incorporating the public safety first responder personnel with the civilian volunteer side. And it was really unique to see that first go round that at the end of the day, with everything that was going on, if you kind of covered up the seals on folks' shirts or their, you know, agency affiliations on the back of their shirts, you couldn't really tell the difference as it came to the folks that made up the teams. Everybody went from being firefighters or law enforcement officers to EMS or emergency management personnel to professional communicators. So we wanted to build on that success for this year's exercise, give everybody an opportunity to get some position task books signed off for the new classes that had just finished. And this go round, we brought in our private sector partners. So we actually had members from the first responder side on the government piece, and then we had the volunteers, and then we also had the private sector, and we took all of those different disciplines and merged them together in individual teams and actually deployed them out to 5 different locations across the state. Last year's exercise was great. We were out our state fire academy, large, complex, lots of room to play with. But I think just about everybody that was there and everybody can kind of talk across a couple football fields with the different technologies that we had. So we wanted to give folks the opportunity to stretch their legs in the technology, so to speak. And we took some scenarios that, looking at the event, would be likely if this were to happen. And then we also took the opportunity to relive and hash out some of the things that actually occurred during the 2015 flood, like having a 911 center having to be evacuated and a temporary 911 center being set up, some shelter communications issues and things like that. So we kind of mustered in the morning, got mission assignments, and then sent everybody out as their team members. Got the initial brief before, so they knew where to show up in the morning like it was an activation. You know, we kind of sent out the call order, and then everybody met. And then as the scenario developed and the injects came in, the teams got their assignments and then went out and deployed to complete the missions that they were assigned. We had over 80 participants just on the communications portion of the exercise itself. We had folks from probably 20 or 30 different counties. We had folks from the state of North Carolina who practice a EMAC mission, where they send in a communications overhead support team to support us during the exercise, like they would in the real world event. And then we also had a huge support from all of our private sector carriers from the big three cellular folks, the T-Mobiles, AT&T, and Verizon emergency response teams, as well as our partners with Motorola, who manages the statewide radio network on the Public Safety 800 side here in South Carolina. So I have a video that I put together. This is all stuff that happened during the exercise at the different locations that either exercise participants shot or other folks that were observing shot that I'd like to share. And then if you have any questions about the exercise, we can take those at the end. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll get this video started for everybody. I might chime in here and kind of narrate some things so you guys understand what's going on. So this is our urban search and rescue folks, our South Carolina Task Force 1, their communications unit team was tasked to fly to the upstate to restore communications to support the establishment of a regional staging area. So the only thing they had were the resources that they can carry with them, and they actually flew from Columbia, South Carolina, about a 30-minute flight or so to the upstate, and then were hoisted down to the ground, and then had to establish local communications and then reach out to those local resources that were available and call them in to support them. So they called in some county resources, and then the AT&T FirstNet folks were deployed. And then what you're looking at now is kind of the area where we were setting up our Incident Communications Coordination Center, which is across the street from the South Carolina Emergency Management Office, or the state EOC, at our Department of Natural Resources. This is the parking lot. This is one of the areas that we deployed a mobile communications vehicle out of Charleston to the lower parking lot of the Emergency Management Division. And we had folks from North Carolina, South Carolina, participating in every team. So these are those members working through their injects. We deployed all kinds of different technologies, from wireless mesh, situational awareness cameras, drones, 700, 800. We even built a 3-channel VHF trunk system during the exercise and did some testing with it. This team here, they were deployed to a church in Lexington that was serving as a shelter location. This is the team from North Carolina that came down and helped us. The folks at the shelter were tasked with, restoring communications to the shelter so that they could relay critical shelter information back to the state EOC for occupancy and burn rates on goods and things like that. There's a big focus this year on drones, so you'll see a couple of pictures where we see some things written out on the ground to be able to identify what communications channels were being used by the folks on the ground by aerial assets. This is a picture of Gretchen and some of our other folks from the ESF2 room inside the State Emergency Operations Center.
This is Team Jedi, Team 2 at the South Carolina Emergency Communications Training Exercise. The time is 11:06 on your drive to lunch. It is raining.
This would be Mr. Greg Hauser. He's the North Carolina Statewide Interoperability Coordinator that came down and played. It was a flooding scenario. It was a 2-day event, and we wanted to make it as realistic as possible, to include the sometimes heavy rainfall that we got during the second day, which was fun to work out of. This is a fire station in the inside of one of our county's new mobile communications vehicle, where we deployed a team to set up a 3-position temporary dispatch center for a local municipality who had to evacuate their facility. And we used a incident tactical dispatcher to run those console positions and relay traffic. Some situational reporting tools. So overall, it was a great exercise. Had a lot of fun, learned a lot of things. It was a really good opportunity for us to work through some things that we had never worked through before. We had set out with a couple main objectives that we wanted to try to focus on for the exercise, and those were, incorporating and making sure that we could coordinate the communications unit personnel to go and deploy and assist local Authority 7 jurisdiction to establish local communications and then reestablish the long distance communications for that initial situational awareness into an area that had been impacted, so that we can get that truth on the ground kind of notices. And then another one of the objectives we wanted to focus on was seeing how we were able to coordinate with our private sector folks on the prioritization and deployment of their resources. So it was great, and had a ton of fun and learned a lot, lessons learned. So we'll be able to take those after actions and put them towards next year. So if you guys have any questions, we'll take this at the end, and then I'll pass it along, I think, over to Gabe next, right?
All right. Thank you, Dennison. And again, I want to appreciate and just say, Dennison, we really appreciate the effort you put into the your piece of that exercise. It went really well. And I know all of the OpsCom folks that played, they loved it. It was a great event, and everybody is stoked and looking for more future activities. Okay, so now I want to talk and share. And by the way, good evening, everybody. It's great to be back here. It's been a little while. I was on the Rat Pack presentation series about a year or so ago, and it's good to be back. Dan and Steve and others, thanks for inviting us to share our little piece of the pie in what we do in South Carolina. But I want to talk a little bit about OpsCom and how we integrated into the state commune and how that kind of got started. And pay attention, because at the end, I'm going to give you a slide that really gives you the keys. I call them the keys to the kingdom, but it's the 3 things that you absolutely must do to make this work and make it work effectively. But our OpsCom program here in South Carolina is obviously, it's by invitation based on demonstrated performance during exercises or activations. And also the county emergency managers can recommend folks that they want to be a part of the program. It is worth noting that we also have ARES in our state, and we delineate the two by saying that ARES, they handle shelter operations, they handle Red Cross support, they handle all of those things strictly at the county level. In order to be deployed at the state level, i.e. state-owned equipment, to be able to perform missions with the state commune or work the radio room that's located at EMD, you have to be a part of OpsCom. You have to have that qualification. And basically, we set that bar is in our state, there's a standardized ICS training requirement that we have. There's a background check that we do, and they are credentialed by us, and they are also part of the state RACES database, which We basically said that our OPSCOM database is also our RACES database. So it's kind of one and the same. You'll notice that other bullet point there. It's used to manage radios and equipment at the state EOC, as well as deploy. We have a bunch of flyway kits and other items such as trailers and share stations. Those guys can deploy that equipment as well. And of course, they deploy in support of a state commune mission. So we adopted the OPSCOM model back in 2012, and it is managed by us at EMD. And again, it does require standardized ICS training, which is ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800. Most of our folks also have ICS 802, which is the ESF2 function. There's some of them have the RADO qualification, and most of them have 300 and ICS 300 and 400. So, and now we've had an OPSCOM class. We had one in August of last year. So we have several that are also have taken that OPSCOM course. And we do hope to have more of those classes in the future, eventually getting all of our OPSCOM folks credentialed through that class. One of the other things that really has helped us tremendously in getting our volunteers to be actively engaged with our state, with our state partners, is we do a monthly coordination meeting. It started out as simply being known as the OPSCOM meeting. It has since morphed into something much more capable and important. It is now called the South Carolina Working Group meeting, Communications Working Group meeting. And I'll cover that, more of that here in a minute. Our OPSCOM umbrella also includes State Guard, Civil Air Patrol, Mars, and of course, RACES, as I said earlier. So our OPSCOM program really kind of is several parts. All of our State Guard folks that are in the G6 part of State Guard, they are also part of our OPSCOM program, as well as our Mars and Civil Air Patrol folks too. So it's kind of a big umbrella there. Our monthly coordination meetings, again, they started out as an OPSCOM type meeting, and at first it was a lot of volunteers only that came, and of course our ESF2 partners. But now, over the years, we've morphed it into a communications working group meeting, which basically we started in like 2017, I want to say. I think it's on the next slide where we'll talk about that. Originally, the OPSCOM meetings were done by all volunteers, and actually our working group meeting is still chaired by volunteers. Roger Mull, he chairs our working group meetings monthly. So we'll go to that. So we started in 17, we transitioned to the working group. It replaced the OPSCOM coordination meeting, and it was more geared toward public safety and personnel from both state and county level, as well as federal partners. What I like about what we have done with this, it really brings everybody to the table, and it gives us an opportunity to all work together, whether we're a volunteer, whether we're a paid professional, doesn't matter. We're all sitting there, we're all working together. We talk and share information about current projects, current happenings around the state, and any issues that we see that we can maybe help each other out on. One thing that this has really done is increase the working relationship and partnerships that we have. And as you can see, it's still chaired by an OPSCOM volunteer. That would be Roger. He chairs our meetings. But now in today's climate, we have 3 or 4 counties that have representation. We have virtually almost every state agency's communications folks that come. ESF2 is there, our SWIC is there, our leadership from EMD, and our Mars program, our Civil Air Patrol folks, Aries, our Aries SEC, and a host of others that are a part of that group. Also, our federal partners, Donnie and Joe from Region 4, they are pretty much there every month, showing support from the federal level. And as I said, if you have a capability in your state of doing something similar, I suggest this, because It doesn't hurt. It certainly helps. And honestly, this meeting is one of the big keys of why we are where we are. It's allowed us to collaborate, to work together, to form partnerships that we previously did not have. All right, so what do we expect? And I kind of hit on this at the last meeting that we had where I was at, but I'll kind of reiterate this so you guys understand kind of where we are. Our expectations of our volunteers, obviously you have to be qualified to support the county, state, and healthcare entities. You have to meet all the training requirements set forth by served agencies, which in our case is the ICS courses. Attend training and exercises, and I'll cover some of the training here in just a moment, and participate in activations. Work as an integrated communications team regardless of their affiliation. Another key part of this, and Dennison said it earlier, it didn't matter who they were when we did the exercise as part of the COMU, whether they were a firefighter, a police officer, a volunteer, they were a team. And that I was really proud of that. And the fact that they worked together well, didn't matter. Nobody was, oh, I can't have you on my team. You're just a volunteer. None of that happened. Everybody worked together well. It went well and smooth. And one of the things that I try to do is I never refer to my volunteers as ham operators and ham radio operators. I refer to them as professional volunteer communicators because they are. They're working at the level of EMD. They're working on the COMU. And when they're out there working with us, they're a professional communicator, just like any of the rest of us. So I really try to make sure they understand that because I want them to understand the role that they play and the significance of what it is that they're doing. So our quarterly training that we do, every quarter we do quarterly training at EMD, and it's open to Aries and OXC members. Sometimes we do OXCOM specific training, and other times we have training that's open to both Aries and OXCOM members. We just had one this past Saturday. It was a great event. We did some exercise, tabletop exercise stuff. We went through and talked more about the COMU and kind of where Aries and OXCOM folks fit into that role. And something new that we're going to be working on in the very near future is I'm going to be partnering with Gretchen and Dennison to provide COMU quarterly training at some of these training events where we're going to bring in the COMU and some of the state strategic stockpile equipment and start training on that stuff. So also I do shares training on a regular basis where we just provide training for shares, and that's share specific. So those members that are shares registered stations can participate in that. And we also do, we do provide access to the DHS training. We've done one last year in August, and I will be working with Gretchen to get some more OXCOM classes in the future. Our goal is to have all these members complete the DHS OXCOM course here sometime in the next coming months to years and try to get that done. So we are again trying to cross-train our OXCOM members to serve on the state deployable ESF2 assets as well that Dennison has as part of our strategic stockpile. Now, these are the three things that I think are most important to what we do to our success and to the productivity of our team. And I wrote them down because I think that anybody, whether you're working for a state, whether you're at the county level, wherever you are, and you're trying to build a better program, these three things are key. And you must have these three things for everything else to fall in. Number one, you got to have the relationships. Since day one that I came into emergency management, which has been almost 7 years ago, I've heard the saying, the disaster site is not the place to exchange business cards. That's very true. We want to have those relationships in place ahead of time. We want to foster those relationships. We want to foster that teamwork. And by teamwork, I mean having the ability to go ahead and do these exercises where we integrate our OXC and OXCOM members into the COMU, and they're comfortable with it. The folks in the COMU are comfortable working with them. At first, it's a little bit kind of unsettling and unnerving, and everybody's got to get used to one another. And it just takes time. That is why you want to do this ahead of time and foster it before you have an event. Partnership. We have to have partnership between different entities. Since our state is so diverse, and our ESF2 group really consists of, as Gretchen and Dennison mentioned earlier, it consists of Department of Administration, SLED, EMD, and also our OXCOM core partners. So it's a diverse group, right? So we have to have partnership to make this work. Going back to the relationship piece, there are several ways that I feel that you can accomplish that successfully. One, do training, get people together, sit them down in a room. And even if it's nothing but to talk about a 205 form, or talk about a 214, or go over some structuring, or go over your go kits. Two, go out to eat sometimes. We do that regularly. We go out with our volunteers, we go out with other folks from the commune and have lunch during the week. The more time you spend together in the off season, or the blue sky days, so to speak, the better you're going to be come game day. And again, I think that these three things right here are one of the significant reasons that our team here has been able to flourish and do so well. Is we foster the relationships, we foster the teamwork, and we foster the partnerships over and over and over again. So before I pass it to Roger to talk about the most recent exercise we did, which was just last week, I just want to say, remember these three things, because this is key. And if you do these three ahead of time, when come game day, you will find it is so much easier to respond and coordinate when you've built those relationships and you have that teamwork already in place. It works well, and we've demonstrated it. And I really just why I wanted to share those three key points to you guys, so that you kind of understand that. So with that, Roger, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the Region 4 and 6 combined cyber communications exercise.
Thank you, sir. And I'll let you run the slides. Back June the 1st, FEMA Region 4 and 6 had an exercise that was based on a cyber attack, and they were focused on Charlotte, Miami, Dallas, and Little Rock. And amateur radios in both regions were invited to participate by sending in Winlink field situation reports starting May the 31st at 4 p.m. and up to 4 p.m. on June the 1st. In a real event, these observational reports can be very useful for determining the area of the impact and the extent of the effect on the local communities. So while Winlink is a really great tool for moving a lot of information during times when you may have lost normal communications, when you receive a lot of reports, mining those reports, those field situation reports, can be time consuming. So we'd already talked about it internally, and Dennison is one of our gurus that can do most anything. So he said, let me figure out how to do a dashboard for us, and we'll take these reports in and we'll ingest them, and we'll give a nice summary for the executives so they can at a glance determine what it is, what's going on. So we were doing this internally, and as a demonstration, we agreed during the exercise that we would process reports for Region 4, and we actually did for Region 4 and 6, but accept the FEMA report sent to them. And we processed over 900 reports during that time period. Next slide. In case you have not used it before, the FEMA, the field situation report looks something like this. The report is real useful in that it allows you to put in your geographical location, and it then lets you answer a series of questions on what the situation is at your location. Is your landlines working? And it breaks it out. Is that a plain old telephone system or is it a voice over internet phone? Is the cellular system working? Is the AM, FM radio broadcast working? Is TV broadcast working? How about your public works? Is the water working? Is the sewer working? And commercial power, internet, and even NOAA radio. So you complete one of these reports and you send it in via Winlink. It's a form, so it compresses down and all you've got is a text field that's been transmitted. So it's fairly efficient in transmitting. And if you go to the next slide. And within Winlink, when you start receiving these reports, you can build this map. And Phil and development team at Winlink has done a great job in making these a great, useful tool. But as you notice this map, there's a lot of reports on there. So to find out what each report said on the Winlink system, you need to go and click on the bubble and it brings up the report and lets you read it. And you can color code it and filter it so there's different colors for different outages. But as you can see, there's a lot of reports there. Okay, next slide. This is the dashboard that Dennison constructed. The map looks very similar in that you can still drill down and pick up a single report by clicking it. But on the right, you got a summary. It tells you how many reports were received, how many were critical, what's the number of impacts. Then it lists the city locations of the impacts. And if you notice at the bottom of the screen, there's some little tabs. And let's go to the next slide. And this is like a dashboard screen. So, and you click this screen, it can tell you which states received what kind of impact, how many they were, how many were communications, public works, cellular, so forth. It gives you a breakdown. So you got a visual representation of what's going on a summary basis. And even you got a little screen down to the left there. It shows you how the reports were coming in over time. And yes, the report should have been between May the 31st through June the 1st. But we had a couple of people send in reports early for testing and so forth. But anyway, we included those in there. And Dennison says this system's made on ArcGIS, and I think most counties and states have this in their inventory. So if this is something you're interested in, you're working with a state agency or a county agency, you probably can get them to build you a similar thing for their use. Next slide. So the dashboard summary provides a very high level summary of field reports and allows you to drill down to the specific reports that were sent. And there's a link on this slide, and Dennis is going to leave this page active for a while so you can actually drill down into it and play with it and see what you can do with the application. And with that, I think we go to the next slide, which is sort of the resource guide we'll go over. And these are some links that you may be interested in looking at. The statewide interoperability coordinators, the South Carolina Emergency Management Division, our own South Carolina Interoperability Field Operational Guide. This is available for Apple and Android. You can download that. We have our statewide SC Heart webpage, which has the analog VHF, UHF, and the DMR networks on it. We have our tactical plan that's developed for areas and races. We have the South Carolina Emergency Communication Services link, and we have courses called South Carolina Interoperability. You click on that, and there are free courses that South Carolina Educational Television has done. And it sort of you can learn anything from basic how to use a radio, as in an amateur radio. There's a course for auxiliary operators. There's a segment for police, fire, EMS. Next slide. And I guess we're ready for questions. So I'll turn the floor over to any questions.
We want to talk about SC Heart a minute.
Can you lower the
can.
desktop? Lower the presentation on desktop, please.
Gabe, can you? Yeah, there. Okay, yeah. SC Heart is a system that got started in 2005. We funded through Health and Human Services grants and our Department of Health and Environmental Control, a statewide VHF and UHF radio system that rides on the state microwave backbone, and most of the sites are on that backbone. We use that for communications during emergencies. We use that for training twice a week. On a Saturday night, it's for ARIES, and on Thursday, it's for hospitals and healthcare facilities. And then a little bit later, about 2014, we used the SC Heart system. We went and solicited grant money through SLED and through Homeland Security Department, and installed a DMR network, UHF, statewide, that also rides on the microwave backbone. It's our command and control system, and it provides a local channel for local ARIES groups to use whenever they're activated. And we have a statewide channel that they can talk to the state. We're really thankful for the support we got from South Carolina Emergency Management, South Carolina Educational TV, who hosts and manages and operates the network for us. And with that, that's pretty much a high-class summary, Steve.
Okay.
Bill wants to know when the exercise we originally talked about took place.
I think it was the second week of April.
Okay, it's close enough.
I think it was like the 13th and 14th or 14th, 15th. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I will get you an affirmed date. Just a second.
Dennison, it was the second week in March.
Second week of March. Okay, man, time flies.
Okay, David has his hand up, so let's go with David. Have him unmute and ask a question, please.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. The first is a request. Would it be possible to put the first slide of the first speaker back up? And my next question is, I'm the ESF2 lead coordinator here in Lexington, Kentucky, which is the second largest city in Kentucky. And we've somewhat done what you guys have done. You guys have done a much better job than we have. One of the questions that I have listening to you is on your DMR system that you put in, are you using amateur frequencies to establish that, or are you using an interop assigned frequencies?
No, these are all amateur radio frequencies. These are amateur repeaters.
Okay.
I might add,
Any chance you can put the first slide up of the presentation with the first speaker?
yeah, David, there was an entire presentation. The first presentation that South Carolina made was all about their DMR system. So you might
Okay.
want to look on YouTube for that and on the
Okay.
Rat Pack series. Thank you.
Hey, Gabe, can you put the slides back up, please?
Yes, yes. All right, let's see.
So on YouTube, what do I search for?
Give me just a second.
All of the slides are going to be published that we had for the presentation. So if you're looking for something for the during the presentation, you'll be able to get those and download them.
I know, but what do I search for on YouTube? Will it be under?
Rat Pack.
Okay, all one word?
Yes.
It'll probably be Rat Pack and South Carolina DMR or something like that.
Okay, thanks.
If you
And
will,
do you have that presentation sheet again on that series you could send to him, or I do, I guess.
Is that the right slide you were looking for?
okay, anybody needing
Yes, that's
information?
exactly it. That's exactly it. Thank you very much.
Anybody needing information on this or others, send me an email at k7rexarrl.net, and I will make sure you get the links you're looking for and the information. So do that. I will also put it into the information I sent out on this presentation. but some of you are not amateur radio people and may not be get our information. So send me an email, k7rex@arrl.net, and I will get that information to you.
Hey, Gene from Pensacola had a question. It was stated that drone operations were used. How was that integrated into comm operations? Also, how was mesh network, and what type of message traffic was used in with mesh, or was it mostly video only?
So we flew drones in several different applications. We used them to do some damage assessment site survey stuff where we would get a report that cellular service in an area was degraded. We think that there was some storm damage, but we can't get access to the site. And we deployed Part 107 public safety drone pilots with commercial carrier folks. They took them to the general location of the site and let them fly the drone to go take video, do a site survey of the site. We also did a joint mission with the USAR folks. They were doing their operational readiness exercise, doing some on the ground search and rescue training, and we deployed some drone teams to support their mission and provide them situational awareness for the folks that were working on the ground from the air. As far as the mesh, we used one of our portable communications trailers and extended the network capabilities of the trailer just under a quarter of a mile, I guess it is, across the street using Radiant Mesh. We were, I think, using 900 meg. And so we were sending data for internet connectivity. And since it extends the network, their internal network of the trailer, we were also able to extend the VoIP phone system as well as the camera, setting up a remote camera at the far end and viewing it remotely back at the trailer itself. And then we even took that data and utilized some blending technology where we were taking satellite, the mesh, and cellular connections and blending all of that data together into a single pipe to see if we could break it.
Okay, any other questions or any hands?
See, Clayton's got a question about the FirstNet CRD. The CRD was deployed in the upstate to provide data and local cellular connectivity on the ground for those guys up there. I'll be honest with you, they didn't get to do a whole lot with it because there were some logistical things and challenges that we had to fight with the actual real flight. So we got started a little bit late and kind of ran out of time for them to get to that part of the scenario once they were actually on the ground. But they did use it the next day just to demo its capabilities, but I don't have any real firsthand knowledge of how functional or how well it worked to be able to speak open and honestly about it. And the mesh network, it's 900, and I don't know off the top of my head what channel it was using, but I can get that and provide it back to you in an email if you want. I can give you my email address, and if you want to shoot me an email, I can look up the config. I don't remember it off the top of my head and give you a response to that one.
Okay, great.
Email in the chat.
Okay, anybody else? Hands, questions in the chat? A lot of good links have been posted in the chat. The chat will go out along with the presentation, so everybody will have the links that are posted there for the different resources.
Can't see my hand because it's the same color as the dog.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
So I got to apologize. I didn't get here till 34 minutes past the hour, but based on what I did hear and the comments, I'm struck by an observation that Oxcom is moving towards ITSL as an inevitable part of digital comms. And I'm just wondering if you've seen the recent what is it, pages 173 through 178 or whatever it is near the end of the new NIFOG, how you're interpreting that and applying it to your Oxcom training or thinking about doing that in the future if you haven't already.
Gabe, do you want to take a crack at that one?
Yeah. Dan, sure. It's on everybody's mind, right? And obviously the IT component is ever more creeping into our radio world with the advent of all of the IP controllers and everything else that we have. So it's not something we've done as of yet per se, but eventually the IT side of it probably will become more standardized into the training as we move forward in time.
Okay, thanks. It's just, I'm really curious about that because I have a lot of anxiety about how that may not be happening in California. I think they're just becoming overly reliant on the National Guard and their immense bureaucracy of Cal OES's tactical communications.
Well, what I will tell you is one thing that we use a lot of, have started using a lot of is obviously Winlink. And obviously Denison's ESF2 trailer has a lot of IT capabilities. So there is the need to do some training already in that realm on the IT side. So as I said, every day new technology is coming online, right? And the newest stuff all is starting to be IP based. So I think all of us as a country is going to see a gradual shift to where whether you're a volunteer or a paid professional, if you're in comms, you're going to have to learn IT and have some sort of an IT background.
Yeah, I'd say that Winlink, while not IP based, makes exquisitely good use of available IP services.
Absolutely.
And fills in a big void that would otherwise be there.
Denison, do you want to add anything I had to say about that?
Yeah, and not just on the IT side. So the way that we were looking at the communications unit as a whole, and I told everybody up front, because let's be honest, especially with the way things are today, we don't always have, no single agency is going to have all of the resources that they need to respond to an event. So even though the teams that were put together for the exercise had like a COML, one or two communications technicians, like an INTD, and then an Oxcom affiliate with it, everybody pretty much got the opportunity to do things kind of out of their wheelhouse, right? So the Oxcom folks got to do CompT stuff, they got to do logistical stuff, because at the end of the day, titles are great in certifications and things like that for the credentialing thing, but the mission success is more important to me, and in the longevity of it. I don't really care who's going to get it done, and we try to give everybody the opportunity to be successful. And it was really cool to see people being willing to step up to the plate and do those kinds of things that aren't typically assigned to the position that they're filling. So I encourage folks to try to get a little bit of experience with all of them.
You all represent the finest of it's the mission, and regardless of what your background is, you do what you can to fulfill the mission, and that's built on the relationships. Nobody's going to trust you till you have the relationships, so folks know what you're about and what you can do. And you got to be willing to say, oops, I can't do that, I haven't learned it yet. Or hey,
that is just as important, if not more important, than being willing to say, hey, I can do that, or I'm willing to try to do that, is knowing that that I really can't. I would like to, but that's probably best I don't.
I don't even know where that wheelhouse is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, y'all are always a pleasure to hear. And first, as soon as this thing comes out, I'm going to drop what I'm doing and watch the first 34 minutes. Thank you, Dan, Big D Dan, for making that possible.
There was a question in the chat, will we be getting a course certificate for tonight? I don't know. I don't think so, unless the people in South Carolina are going to be giving it up to their people.
I
Any
think
questions?
this is more of just an information sharing thing than it was more of a training.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Hands up or questions in the chat, please. Well, Dan, I think we can wrap it up. I don't see anything else.
I will add and say, you know, as Dennis has said, this was our goal here tonight is to information share, right? We want to help others become better at our craft. And I encourage you, the last page of that presentation had the contact information for Dennison, Gretchen, myself, and Roger. If there's anything that you guys have questions on, or you need a question or want to ask, please feel free to reach out to us. We certainly do not mind sharing these things to you so that it can help you make a better place where you are. And I'll go back to the starting point is the relationships, and have meetings. Just even if it's to drink a cup of coffee and have a hot dog or something and sit around and discuss plans and ways forward, that helps, because once you get to put faces with names and you get familiar with people, obviously that's the big deal, right? And I think Dan said it a few minutes ago. Once you're comfortable with somebody and you know them, you've dealt with them, now you trust them, and now that helps you work together better when you move forward. And it's a lot harder to do that when strangers come together in a disaster scene and there's chaos. So I think honestly, that's my advice, is just build those relationships, work together, train together, go out, have lunch, whatever the case is, but build them and have those relationships in place. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight to listen. And again, thank you, Roger, Dennis, and Gretchen. Thank y'all for all y'all do. And if anybody has questions, please reach out. We will be glad to answer.
Can you put that contact page up on the screen one more time, please?
Absolutely. Stand by 1 second.
Just a comment while you're doing that. This is Greg Smith with Georgia Emergency Management Homeland Security. I just wanted to give Roger, Gabe, Gretchen, and the other, I can't forgot your name. What a great presentation. What a great Oxcom program you've got. I am, you guys, I'm sure, are very aware of Edwin Whitworth over here is the Jima Swick, and he is off the grid at the moment, recovering from a serious case of COVID. So in the meantime, I'm your ESF2 contact over the river here in Georgia. Would love to talk to you guys a little later about sharing some of that Oxcom training and some of the exercise that you did in the beginning of your video. But just wanted to raise a hand and just give a kudos to you guys. What a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Do y'all see the contact page?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to, I started this, so let me finish it. You guys are the real deal. There's no question about it. I don't think there's anybody anywhere who has taken the direct management of volunteer resources and made them as productive as you guys do. My first experience was many years ago when I got a call out of the blue from a gentleman who's passed away that ran your educational TV, Mr. John Crockett, and asked me if I would come train on Winlink. And when I left there, I had some excellent relationships that still exist today that had been built, and I've learned a tremendous amount. We all have learned a tremendous amount from you and from North Carolina, and we're grateful and Winlink is grateful. We're still programming as a result of your assistance with this situation report and many other aspects of Winlink that you stick us with every once in a while. So keep it up, please. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and this was a great presentation. Thank the presenters, and thank you, Steve, and thank you, Dan. And Dan, you want to go ahead and close?
Yeah, I would like to add one comment from me is we need more of this. You're right about this relationship thing, but it's not only here locally, but it is nationally. To know who the players are, what is really happening in somebody else's area. I'm in Idaho. We don't have a lot of disasters. So knowing what you guys are doing and doing about it is important to me. I wouldn't have that information if it wasn't for presentations like this. So I thank Steve for pulling this all together. And let's look forward to some more of this in the future, if you don't mind. I really would appreciate that. And with that, unless somebody else has got something else to say or comment, we'll pull the plug.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
everybody.
Roger. Thanks,
Good night.
fellas.
Thanks.
Good
Take care.
night. Best regards, all hands.
All right, thank you.
Good
Everybody
night, all.
safe.
Stay safe, everybody. Take care. Good night, Dick.